Baldur's Gate 3 gives the player an insane amount of narrative choices that can impact the story in a myriad of different ways. And some of these decisions are downright evil or just lead to negative consequences for everyone involved. In this video, we're going to explore the 10 worst choices you can make in Baldur's Gate 3. For now, I'll only be focusing on choices in Act 1 and 2, in part because there are so many bad choices in this game, and also because only about 2% of the player base has completed Act 2 so far. But don't worry, I'll be making more videos on other evil decisions in the days to come. So if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. But I've rambled on long enough, so let's dive right into the 10 most cursed decisions in Baldur's Gate 3. Number 1. Gnome Tossing. Early in Act 1, you'll be tasked with infiltrating the Goblin camp to discover a way to cure yourself of the illithid parasite. Along the way, you can stumble upon a group of goblins tormenting a captive gnome, who they've tied to the blades of a windmill. This will trigger the quest Save the Gnome. After either killing the goblins or convincing them to leave, you can find a brake lever at the bottom of the windmill. However, upon closer inspection, there are actually two buttons. One which will stop the windmill blades, and the other which will release the brake entirely.
It's like the thrill of being near the executioner's switch. Knowing that at any moment, you could throw it. But knowing you never will. Never isn't the right word, because I could. And I might. I probably will.
Release the brake!
What the? Oh, Birdie just flew away!
Number 2, could you give me a hand? Shortly after dropping off the Nautiloid, you'll run across a mysterious magical portal outside the Druid's Grove. Upon interacting with it, a hand reaches out asking for help. This is Gale, a powerful wizard and potential companion. However, if you chose the Dark Urge origin story, you'll unlock an option to fantasize about killing Gale, only for this to happen.
This branch of flesh is begging to be pruned, and its sap sucked from.
My mistress' eyelids stop! Cease, you loon! Ah! Ah!
As soon as the dreams cross the threshold of your imagination, you snap back to realize they have all come true.
You were supposed to lend a hand, not take one.
Joy floods through you. You were dazed on the Nautiloid, but now you are truly awake. Alive.
This ghastly scene cuts us off from a companion, leaving behind only his hand as a gruesome trophy for our serial killer protagonist. Number 3. Death of a Tiefling. Shortly after arriving in Emerald Grove, you'll be directed to meet the current leader of the Druids, a fanatical xenophobe named Kaga. Upon entering the inner sanctum, we'll discover Kaga interrogating and berating a tiefling child named Arabella, who recently yoinked a religious idol from the Druids. Kaga's poisonous snake Tila is threatening Arabella throughout the conversation, poised to strike if the opportunity presents itself. If you make a mistake in the ensuing dialogue, it's possible for Arabella to get ganked by a deadly snake bite. However, the Dark Urge origin opens up a more sinister option where you can deliberately provoke this outcome.
The snake's hiss of approval reveals its intentions. Should the child struggle, it is poised to strike. The death of a child, a timeless tragedy that never grows old.
Now, Wrath.
No!
Ithias! Tila, to me!
Gone. By the gods, Korga, what have you done?
Bury the remains. Continue the rite.
And the parents? They're just outside.
This outsider will take word once I've spoken to him. We must focus on the rite.
I don't know what else to say here. Dark Urge is just fucked, bro. Number 4, raiding the Grove with an army of goblins. After what happened to Arabella, you may be tempted to just see the whole world burn, or at least the entirety of the Druid's Grove. If that's the case, you're in luck, because there is an option to lead a goblin and drow army to raise the Grove in the name of the Absolute. In order to unlock this option, you'll need to enter the Goblin Camp, and specifically the Inner Sanctum by peaceful means. You can do this with a speech check, leveraging your illithid powers, or by rescuing the Goblin Saza from the Druid's prison. Once inside, speak with the drow leader named Minthara, and reveal the location of the Druid's Grove to her. After taking a long rest, you'll be prompted to infiltrate the camp, at which point you can speak with Zevlor and revel in your treachery.
You led the drow here? By the 9 hells, why? I don't... Oh, gods. You've turned on us. Hells, why?
Beware, this option will cause some of your more do-gooder companions like Will to leave your party forever. However, you will be able to unlock the drow Minthara as a companion, and even share a passionate night with her in the aftermath of the slaughter. I'd say it's a fair exchange.
Your obedience will make this more enjoyable for both of us. Tell me what you want.
Number 5, killing Karlach. Shortly after reaching the Grove, you'll have an opportunity to recruit the Warlock Will, who tasks us with helping him track down a powerful devil named Karlach. But when we eventually track her down, we discover she is not a demon, but a mere tiefling who was pressed into Zariel's army against her will. Now, I already made a video exploring the most compelling reasons why you should kill Karlach from a role-playing standpoint, but it's pretty clear after speaking to her that killing her is the worst outcome. For starters, she was not a willing participant in Zariel's army, and sought to escape at the first opportunity. Moreover, Will is doing Mizora's dirty work with this job, so his hands ain't exactly clean. And finally, you'll miss out on a powerful and fun-loving barbarian companion with an interesting storyline. But if you find none of that compelling, you can always choose to cut Karlach down instead. Sorry, homegirl.
It's done, Karlach. By my living soul, you will forever burn.
You know, I could have used a friend. Pity that won't be you.
Number 6, sabotaging Mayrina's plot to save her husband. This is actually a 2-for-1 because there are a few sinister outcomes to this quest and I can't decide which one is worse. But I'm getting ahead of myself. While exploring the forest, you can stumble upon 2 angry men arguing with an old woman. Apparently the old woman is a hag who kidnapped their sister Mayrina and has been holding her hostage. Which turns out to be true, and if you pursue this quest to the end, you can foil the hag's plot and free Mayrina. But it turns out Mayrina was a willing participant who made a deal to trade her unborn child to the hag in exchange for getting her husband raised from the dead. If you explore the hag's lair, you can discover a necromancer's wand, which you can use to revive her husband. The first evil option is to break the wand in front of Mayrina's eyes.
Bring him back! Bring Connor back! Please! What have you done? You bastard! I thought you were going to hell! I thought...
But there is another, arguably worse outcome. If you use the wand, you can actually raise her husband from the dead. Only problem is, he's a mindless zombie enslaved to the power of the wand. At this point, you can either turn the wand over to Mayrina, but why deny yourself a useful thrall?
What's happening? Why is he still dead?
You feel something pull at you. The creature yearns for a master.
What have you done to him? He's not a creature. He's my husband. I wanted him back the way he was, not this. You bastard! Give him back! I thought you were going to hell! I thought...
This is one of those quests that really doesn't have any good endings, because even if you leave the wand with Mayrina, well, her husband is a zombie.
He's not a creature, he's my husband.
And if you cut a deal with the hag instead, or otherwise leave Mayrina to fend for herself, that can't really end well either. At least not for Mayrina. So yeah, probably don't cut a deal with hags. It never turns out your way. Number 7, talking to Isobel too early at the Last Light Inn. This is actually more of a consequence than an explicit choice, but it was one that broke a couple of different quest lines in my first playthrough. When you reach the Shadow-Cursed Lands, you'll discover a Harper Sanctuary at the Last Light Inn and connect with Jaheira, a powerful druid who was a companion character in the original Baldur's Gate games. Jaheira will prompt you to speak with Isobel, who can create a spell to protect your party from the effects of the Shadow Curse. Unfortunately, speaking with Isobel will trigger a major fight that can lead to dire consequences for everyone involved. I was completely unaware of this in my first playthrough, so shortly after reaching the Last Light Inn, I immediately went and spoke to Isobel, only to see her get captured by a winged badass soldier. This causes the protective barrier over the inn to fail and turns everyone inside into shadow-touched abominations, which your party plus Jaheira will be forced to slaughter. Unfortunately, there are a couple of NPCs here that are integral to Halsin and Karlach's companion quests, specifically Damon the Tiefling Blacksmith and a madness-touched Flaming Fist who has key information about how to cure the Shadow Curse. And if the barrier over Last Light Inn fails, these NPCs will die and permanently break those quest lines. After this happened, I was unable to recruit Halsin to my party and unable to lift the Shadow Curse as a result, a fact which the game went to great lengths to shove in my face.
I can't blame Halsin for leaving. We should have done more for him and for the Cursed Lands. They may never again feel the breath of life on them. What a shame.
The worst part was I even discovered Thaniel, aka Oliver, but I think since I hadn't triggered the earlier part of the quest where Halsin leaves your camp to investigate, I was unable to talk to him about this or bring him along as a companion, and he ended up abandoning my camp permanently at the end of Act 2. Now, it is possible to save Isobel during this attack, but it requires a bit of strategy and foreknowledge that an attack is even coming, because all the winged horrors along with Marcus will specifically target Isobel, and if you don't focus them down quickly, the kidnapping will be successful and Last Light Inn will fall. I mistakenly thought that Halsin's recruitment was tied to Zevlor's rescue, and by the time I realized that this wasn't the case, I was already 12 hours past any save file before Isobel's capture. Feels bad, man.
Though however deep your pain, it cannot compare to Halsin's.
Okay, we're about to get into a few spoilers from the end of Act 2, so if you haven't made it that far in the story, now's your chance to bookmark the video and come back later. You ready? Spoilers incoming. Number 8. Let Shadowheart fulfill her destiny. After infiltrating Moonrise Towers, you'll discover Kethric's family tomb and a hidden Sharan fortress below ground. After completing the Gauntlet of Shar, you'll come face to face with Nightsong, an imprisoned Aasimar who is fueling Kethric's immortality. If you have Shadowheart in your party and you retrieve the Lithic Spear, Shadowheart will poise herself to kill Nightsong in the name of Lady Shar. At this point, you can either kill Shadowheart, convince her to stand down, or allow her to kill Nightsong. Each decision has a major impact not only on Shadowheart's personal quest, but the upcoming fight with Ketheric as well. If you free Nightsong, she will take up arms and aid you in battle. She will also reveal the truth about Shadowheart's past and put her on a road to redemption. Not to mention, she will also hang out in your camp in Act 3. Or you could say, f*** all that, and let Shadowheart run her through.
There it is. True death, at last. You are Shah's child, after all. And I am.
It is done. You have proven yourself. You have answered my highest calling. My chosen. My warrior. My dark Justiciar.
This will cause a number of bad outcomes depending on what you're going for. Night Song's death will rob you of a powerful ally in the fight ahead. It will also lead to Jaheira and everyone else at the Last Light Inn dying off screen. Also, if you're in a romance with Shadowheart, this will make it much more difficult to proceed, since Shadowheart is now devoting herself to Lady Shar entirely. I still believe it is possible, but I haven't gotten that far yet with my Dark Justiciar Bay run, so don't quote me on that just yet. Ultimately, this is one of the worst decisions in the game in my opinion, at least when it comes to far-reaching negative consequences. Number 9. Kill Mizora with Will in your party. Will's personal quest will task us with rescuing an asset of Zariel from the bowels of Moonrise Towers. Near the end of Act 2, we will discover this asset was none other than Mizora herself, who managed to get herself nabbed by the Mind Flayers. We'll find her trapped in a pod with 2 buttons, one which frees her, and the other has terrible consequences for both her and Will. Choose wisely.
Hells. What are you? No!
Will? Will!
Shit! Please, no! Please!
Will!
This scene is more painful if Karlach is along for the ride as well. She shares a powerful bond with the Blade of Frontiers after he was convinced to spare her life, so seeing her newfound friend dragged into the bowels of the Hells is obviously upsetting for her.
Will! No! No! You did this. You killed Mizora and she took Will back to the Hells with her. He's gone! Don't you understand? He's gone! But he isn't dead, is he? He's a blob of tormented flesh in the Hells. And that's all he'll be. Forever. How could I let this happen? To Will. To Will.
Number 10. The secret worst ending to Baldur's Gate 3. Did you know you can actually make the credits roll before you even reach Act 3? This decision involves Gale. If you pursued Gale's personal quest, you'll discover he absorbed a Netherese orb into his chest, and his mistress, Mystra, has tasked him with detonating the orb in order to end the threat of the Absolute. If you bring Gale along as a companion during the final phases of Ketheric's boss fight at the end of Act 2, Gale will offer to sacrifice himself to destroy the Elder Brain and put an end to this once and for all. At this point, you can convince him to stand down, but if you let him proceed, then this happens.
I must do as Mystra commands. One last gust of weave. One last gale to end them all.
No!
Beneath the smoking ashes of Moonrise Towers, the Elder Brain lies destroyed. But what of the tadpoles it commanded? Freed of the Absolute's control, they will complete their transformations. A plague of illithids will soon descend on the Sword Coast, enslaving all they do not infect. It is an ending of sorts, though not the one destiny had in store for you.
So yeah, that's a pretty bad ending. Not only because you won't play through Act 3. Having a sea of mind flayers overrun the stored coast was not the intended outcome for Gale or your party. Hilariously, you can also trigger Gale's Netherese orb in combat, which leads to an instant wipe for your entire party. I don't know why they included this as an ability, but it is pretty funny. So there you have it. The 10 worst decisions in the first 2 acts of Baldur's Gate 3. Were there any horrible choices I missed? Let me know in the comments below. I plan to explore more terrible choices in the days and weeks to come, so be sure to subscribe to Big Dan Gaming if you want to see more. I'm currently exploring a Dark Urge playthrough, and let's just say I wasn't ready for how twisted it is. As always, big shout out to all the channel members for supporting my content. Until next time, this has been Big Dan. I should go.